All right. I hope everyone can hear it now and is able to see the screen. Warm welcome from Germany. My name is Stefan. I'm the focal point for the major group of youth in the UN Forum on Forest. And yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here today for our online training leading up to UNFF14 in New York. So it's global challenges and global solutions, international forest policy in the UN and beyond. So today it's a pleasure to have INTERHOLCO and two representatives of them with us who are going to introduce us to the topic from international forest policy to local action. And yeah, we're going to have a short presentation from their end, and then we'll have time to ask questions and also have some clarifications on the content they introduced to us. And we hope you all have a great time learning and growing together. And I'll just hand over to Mr. Grauert and his colleague. Welcome, great to have you today.
Yeah, welcome, Stefan. Thank you very much. So hello to everybody. We can't see all of you and we don't know exactly how many are online, but welcome and thank you very much for the possibility to share our experience as INTERHOLCO with you. So we will just how we thought, we will go through a presentation. We really invite you, and maybe Stefan, you can coordinate that, to intervene at any point you like and ask questions. So don't wait if you don't want until the very end, but just intervene at any stage. We are close to Easter, so that's why we have this little rabbit here sitting with us. And yeah. I start myself. My name is Ulrich Grauert. I'm 53, married, 5 children, German, living in Switzerland since 25 years, born in Africa, and I'm running INTERHOLCO as CEO, and I'm with the company since 26 years, I think, roughly. And yeah, that's what I just my person. I hand over to Tulia.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tulia Baldassarri. I'm Italian. I learned the ropes of journalism and then joined the United Nations before moving on to the private sector, first with ATIBT in Paris, and then since 2016 here in Switzerland with INTERHOLCO. And I work in communication and marketing.
Yeah, so we will talk together, we share information, and just let's start. So Stefan told us how to start the presentation. We will just share our screen. So, and then let's start here on the first page. Stefan, if maybe we just ask whether everything is visible and hearable from your side?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Good. So then we will just start to have an insight on INTERHOLCO. INTERHOLCO is based in Switzerland, and we are here since 1962. And actually, at that time, 1962, we started our operations in Africa, in Ivory Coast at the time. And then later on, we have been in Cameroon, we have been in the DRC, and today we are in the Republic of Congo. That is where we have our industrial operations, and other than that, we buy and sell from mainly all over the world, mainly from Africa, but also from Europe and a little bit in Asia, a little bit in the United States. So, and INTERHOLCO as a company, we have an outlet in Belgium with an importer stock to serve our markets in Northern Europe. We have sales representatives a little bit all over the world, with offices in Shanghai in Asia and China, but also in Bahrain for the Gulf area, and well, some things in Africa and the United States also. So we want to talk about where we source the majority of our timber, which is our own concession in Africa. And this is what you see. It's IFO in the middle of the picture. That's the concession, the northern part of the Republic of Congo. The Republic of Congo is Brazzaville. It's not the DRC Kinshasa Congo. It's another country, just for you that know that. And our timber, which we produce, is being exported through Cameroon, out of the port of Douala, or through the Republic of Congo out of Point Noir, just that you have some idea of how we work. This is a picture of the industry and also the village. Maybe starting in the very background, you can see the village where workers live, but then also there's a bigger village behind where people and relatives of our workers live. Then you have just the industry. You have several sawmills and transformation processes. We have kilns on the spot here. So this is the site, and we are close to a river called the River Sanga. So what we do actually, I mean, we are at the heart of our business, we are foresters. We're doing the same business, I would say, like foresters in Europe, in the United States, all over the world. And our point is doing sustainable forestry, which means selective harvesting of logs. So first of all, we have an inventory of the whole concession, and we will talk about later about the concession, but it's 1.6 million hectares, which is big. So we have a management plan over the whole concession, so we know today in which area we will be in 2026 or in 2033. I mean, this management plan is a 30-year plan, so we know already today where we will be tomorrow, which species we will find, which area we will be, what are the densities, what are the growth rates, what are diameters of logs, and so on. And on that, we plan our road construction, the logging operation, the harvesting, and also the trucking from the forest to the mill. So the mill is inside the forest. Once the logs arrive in the mill, we have a processing process there. So logs come into the mill and are opened to be produced into lumber, into what we call bools, into finger jointed materials. So there are different products coming out. And afterwards, that's being transported about 1,500 kilometers to either the port of Point Noir or the port of Douala, and then being shipped into the world. We are serving some more than 50 countries, roughly worldwide. And maybe one thing to say that we transform 85% of all logs harvested. We transform locally in our industry, and only 15% or less on average we export as logs, because there are certain qualities of logs which can be better transformed, or where customers definitely have interest to do whatever they need to do on their own. This is just a short overview of the products we do. So you have lumber in general. We have dried lumber, so we do kiln drying, we do molding, we do finger jointing, so different processes. This is just a shot of transport. So after delivery from the port of Africa, yeah, we are serving and selling all over the world into this 50 countries, roughly. To have an idea of where do we sell to and where does Interholco timber arrive in the world. So you can see one big part is going into Europe. This is UK, this is France, Germany, this is Poland, this is Italy, Spain, Turkey, also part of Scandinavia. Another part is going to Far East, so China is an important market, but with roughly 19% last year. And then other markets like Vietnam, like India, Malaysia, Indonesia. An important and increasing market is Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, but also Northern Africa like Egypt and so on. And then we have sales into Africa, which is mainly the northern part of Africa and partly into the United States. Yeah, these are the main areas where timber goes to. Then also, as Interholco, we have our own forest, but also we buy and sell from other forests. And we will explain to you how we make sure that products we buy from other sources are also traceable and legal. And we will show you how our due diligence process is working. But timber out of this trading section is going more into Far East, but also majority into Europe, and again a little bit into Africa, into United States. We have done some 65 million euros turnover last year, so we're not a super big company. I mean, we're not Nestle or Mercedes or whatever. However, we have some 1,000 employees that really working in Africa and also here in Europe all together. So we are a sort of mid-sized company, and these are just a rough sales breakdown of also the species we do, like Sapeli, Wengi, Tali, Azobe. You might not know them. You might be acquainted more with the beech or oak or ash in Europe and North America. But these are typical African species which we harvest and which we trade. And what do we do typically out of the logs? We do, in a big part here, 62% logs are cut into lumber. And then are cut into bools, what we call, or finger jointed material. And just to have an idea of how logs are transformed from the log, then in the sawmill they're opened, and we have rather modern material with lather techniques to really get a maximum possible yield. And you have lots of products coming out. I mean, that is tabletops, could be also for kitchen. It is for kindergarten, for public construction, also doing for water resistant. Maybe Tuli, you can.
Yes, this is a nice story here because it's actually one of our contacts in the Netherlands, which is also renowned as a very demanding country for certification. So we ship over there, and once this lady, she was walking with her 2 kids, whom you're now seeing on the slide, and she recognized, oh, that's the Interholco logo, I better take a picture and send it over to them. So this is mainly an Azobe product. Azobe is a very durable, very resistant species, which doesn't rot, even in contact with seawater, which is the case here along one of the canals.
Yeah. So this is finger jointed material, so you glue the lumber together and you finger joint it together, and this is especially for window and door, well, window frames majority. This is something which is rather sort of high tech, already done in Africa. So this product is really done glued together and finger jointed in Africa. So that's really also something where we put efforts into quality control, but also into education of our employees locally to be able to really produce a product which is already a rather high end, which then is served into the European market. So let's talk a little bit about the forest in Africa, our concession. So the concession, as you can see at the top right, is about 1.2 million hectares, which is about 1/4 of Switzerland, just that you have an idea. If you compare 1/4 of Switzerland to our concession, I mean, in Switzerland, in all Switzerland, we have about 8 million people living, and we have only 16,000 people living in our concession, Africa. We have about 200 people living per square kilometer in Switzerland, and you have 0.7 people living in our concession, Africa. So there's very low population in the forests, which is of course also understandable. In the forest, we harvest, as we said, with selective logging and on a sustainable basis. So we have a potential of 5.2 million cubic meters, which we could cut there. However, we cut much less today. If we would add species which we are not trading today, which are on the right side, like IET, Dabema, Evius, Limba, and so on, we could add another 4.8 million cubic meters as an additional potential. This is just to let you know that we could double or even triple our production today and still be fully sustainable. I mean, this is just important maybe to understand on what basis we harvest in Africa. This is another aspect of our, we skip now our own production, we go to our third-party purchases and trading. This is our due diligence system, responsible procurement system. So if we buy logs or lumber or whatever timber products from any customer, we check on legality first. And if the audits find out that timber might not be legal, it's on the very bottom red line, we just don't buy. And then we have different sorts of suppliers. Suppliers, number one, which are legal. So we can, and we do know the source, of course, so we do buy, but then we also have customers, suppliers who are themselves already third-party verified, and we have suppliers who are also third-party verified and sustainable verified, like FSC, PFC certification, which you for sure know. So on the procurement side, we really go on the spot, personally, physically, we check documents, we go to the forest, we talk to the people, we talk to the local population of our suppliers even, and if suppliers are audited third party or are even FSC certified, we do less physical audits because we can rely on third party verification. So IFO, that's our own forest, which is 100% legality certified and FSC certified. And then you have the wood we trade from third parties, where we buy 87% FSC certified, and then you have second party legality verified 6% and 7% third party legality verified, like OLB, and these are certain certification certificates. Yeah, here I would like to hand over a little bit to Tulia. Yeah, I just hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, this slide is about the license to operate. So what does it mean? We care very much about legality. When we talk about our concession, it's not because it belongs to us. Actually, it keeps belonging to the state. We just have a concession, which means we legally are endowed with the ability to carry out harvesting. But our license to operate is not just from the legality aspect with the Republic of Congo. It's also the license that we have from a number of stakeholders. And these are, first and foremost, our immediate communities. So our employees locally and internationally, but especially locally, because it's about 1,000 employees, their immediate communities, meaning the population in Gombe, the population in the forest concession, but also all of these third-party suppliers whom we sustain with our economic success, so to speak. Then, of course, we have the environmental stakeholders. So we have a number of NGOs the local, the regional and the international level, with whom we exchange and whom we also host at IFO, because IFO, our forest concession and industrial site, has a tradition of being open even to very critical people whom we host without any problem and with all transparency. Then also we have a license from the economic stakeholders, meaning of course first and foremost the state to whom we pay taxes. Yes, yeah. you can perhaps show all of these different, we call these landscapes, because we realize that taking care of the forest means so much more than just taking care of the forest alone. Already the forest, which is also our natural capital, is a lot more than just the trees. It's the wildlife, it's the people living in and from it. So it's an ecosystem. And of course,
as you can see here on the slide, inside the concession we have some 4,000 elephants, like forest elephants. We have about 70,000 gorillas inside the concession, which is the biggest gorilla population worldwide. Something we try to communicate, that the cohabitation of economic value and harvesting a forest and cohabitating still with wildlife, elephants, gorillas, buffaloes, many other animals, of course, it is possible. So inside the concession, we're creating jobs, livelihoods for people. We have a valid business case as a company, of course, but still we cohabitate with the forest, with the species, and the habitat of animals. As you can see here, 300,000 hectares conservation area. I mean, out of 1.15 million hectares, it's 27% of the total forest surface, which is completely set aside. And then you can see also sites which are completely protected, set aside. And also we have eco guards who are controlling best possible. And still we do have poaching, of course, inside the concession. But if you don't really invest into eco guards, and we have about 50 eco guards there, then yeah, we have rather strict anti-poaching measures there.
So here it's about the social landscape, as I was saying before. Our immediate communities are first and foremost stakeholders. And of course, they need a number of things that need to be provided to them. So we built a hospital facility providing for over 12,000 medical consultations in 2016 alone. And some of the people coming to these medical facilities are actually even coming from outside the forest concession, from the city of Wesso, which is strictly speaking very much outside. Then, of course, the wages are fair. These are salaries that endow our employees with the ability to really plan for their future and the future of their children, so that they do not necessarily have to continue working in the forest concession if they do not wish so, but they can pursue their dreams. Several of our employees have children living perhaps in Senegal, now working even in France or in Europe or elsewhere in the world. And of course, drinking water is an issue, electricity is an issue. This is all provided by our presence there.
And also you see meetings there. I mean, we have, just to get an understanding, we said before, 16,000 people inside the whole concession. 10,000 people are living close to the industry, and 6,000 people live in the forest itself. And we have about 90 villages spread over the whole concession. So if we have 300 meetings, as you can see on the bottom right, it means that we are nearly daily visiting local communities and villages to talk to women, talk to the men, talk to the elders, talk to the younger generation, talk about their issues, explain what we are doing as a company, and so on, to be an exchange. And maybe one thing you mentioned 2016 figures. Tulia is just preparing a new sustainability report, which is then going until 2018 figures, and you will see more or less the same figures every year. It's just that we took it from the last sustainability report.
So here you find basic figures for the local suppliers, as I was saying before. So what we do goes beyond just our immediate employees. It goes to the third parties, to people who are maybe taking care of transporting our wood, or the people taking care of providing us with gasoline and with a number of other things that are needed for good daily operations, from food to fuel to road transport and so on and so forth. And then, of course, legality and certification has to be paid for, and the wages are not just the salaries, but also pension benefits, insurance benefits for our employees, and also the third-party providers. And of course, a large part of this goes into taxes paid to the Republic of Congo, which the state can then reinvest. So. Then there's a regulatory landscape. So this landscape is very important, because what we do is not in isolation from what happens around us and in the world. First of all, of course, we respect all the national laws and the rights of the workers according to Congolese legislation. But then there are also international standards. So we want to make sure that we comply with the expectations of a lot of people and organizations and donors from all around the world, in terms of workers' rights, human rights, no minors working at our facilities. And we also comply with the standards that are recognized as a baseline, so the GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative, which has inspired our sustainability report. We care about legality, we care about the Global Compact for climate. And we followed closely also international agreements such as the Paris Accord from 2015, because we recognize that the forest with its services, such as regulation of the water cycle, the climate regime, etc., is a natural capital, not just for us, but also for everyone on this planet. And that's why we believe that we contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals set out by the United Nations.
Another aspect which might be of interest is the natural capital. I mean, there is what a natural capital protocol, which is known worldwide today, and the natural capital in a nutshell is the forest we have there in concession. It is the trees, it's the animals, it's the people living there, it's the biodiversity. So all that is a natural capital which we are hosting, and in which we are taking responsibility as a concession owner of that. And we have made some analysis to say, okay, what can you do with the forest? You can protect the forest 100% and set aside. You can do forest management and harvesting like we do, or you could really cut the forest and plant palm oil trees, which unfortunately has been done in many areas of the world. So if we instead of protection and 100% fully protection, we do forest management, sustainable logging, sustainable selective logging, we can generate 17 times more economic value than strict conservation. On the same time, we have employees, people have water, education, hospital, and so on. On the other side, of course, the government could decide to give it free for agriculture and palm oil production, to cut the forest. That you have 650 times more economic value, which is, of course, much more interesting economically. However, you would destroy natural capital which is there.
And I would also add, Uli, if I may, it's not entirely sure that the population would benefit. I mean, so far this is also
palm oil, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is an entire economic value which is so much higher and goes directly to maybe the companies who are known for these, wherever they are based, Asia, Southeast Asia, wherever else. And here on top of this slide, also important, you see why we say that we harvest sustainably. So already in the Republic of Congo, the rate which is being harvested is very low, but at our IFO facilities, we only harvest 0.5 trees per hectare. So a hectare can be anywhere between 1 or 2 football fields, according to the football field, whether it's in America or in Europe. So we stayed with the lowest end, one football field, and even so it's quite remarkable. We only do this once every 30 years. With 30 years is a rotation cycle at IFO where we harvest.
Just maybe quickly to explain a 30 years rotation cycle. So you take your concession and you say, okay, in 2018 I want to work here, 2019 I want to work there, and so on. So and after in 2018, for example, last year, we closed the logging roads and it is set aside. And we come back only in 30 years from now, which is in 2048, we would come back to the area of 2018. This is what is meant there. And yeah, if you would like, you can go on our website and look at the, I think, 17 Sustainability Development Goals, and you can click on there and look where does INTERHOLCO respond to the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, or the forest sector in general, also in Africa. Maybe another thing to, if you just want to get more information, you can click on the internet on Fair and Precious. This is an organization based in Europe, and they just explain about tropical timber harvesting advantages and so on. And we are part of this movement, and we can only, well, if you have time, please have a look there. It's interesting. People, we also want to make a little shift on where are critical points. I can only say that 30 years ago, the timber industry in general, but also in Africa, it has been more closed shop because we are not public, so we have no need to be public and participate in communication or give information. And we have made ourselves a big change, like some 10 years ago. I mean, and Tulia is doing a great job there, because we have figured out that people just don't know really what we do. And partly, even if we tell, people don't believe, but we can only invite, and without knowing you, but if you are students and if you want to dig into that further, please also take contact with us. Even afterwards, we have, I know there's one colleague maybe of you listening called Felix Miller. He was here just as a practicant for a couple of months now. We can only invite people to come, have a look. This is here a transparency initiative, which has nothing to do with us. So they just screen the markets and the companies. And we have, by chance, rated #1 in 2018. And it's just, we're participating in this. And I think all of the timber industry needs to participate into that. And I think we can, like that, really explain the world in a better way, what is really happening in selective sustainable logging in Africa, which has positive impacts.
Again, for us, communication goes beyond just publishing articles. For us, communication is about engaging with a number of organizations, donors across the landscapes which you've seen before, the environmental, the economic, the social and regulatory landscapes. So we've learned a few lessons throughout the years.
Yeah, that is something maybe we can go through, because the world is not always easy. And we just, without going into detail here, we just want to pinpoint certain topics which we are aware of and which are, I would say, difficult to live with. So there is an absence of a level playing field. We do have illegal timber competing with our timber. We are more expensive and we still have to sell to the same customers finally. So there's just not a level playing field, which makes it more difficult to earn money, but also to invest into the company and to develop that further. There is, of course, always a risk of being replaced by irresponsible operators. I mean, there is pressure from Asia, especially on the African forests, and this pressure is just, we can feel that. Another point is the competition from temperate hardwood from the United States, from Europe, for example, and specifically beech or oak or pine or spruce, you can do technically lots of things together today. You just pump chemical products into pine, and you have a durable timber which you can put into the garden. But on the same side, or you take oak and you put chemical treatment, and you have railway sleepers, which also can have a life of maybe some 15-20 years. But on the other side, you can take African timber, tropical hardwoods, without any chemical added, and you have a long life or the same technical issue. So, but there is a competition which we feel which is difficult to handle. Maybe I don't go through all the things. I mean, we are, for example, FSC certified 100%, but do we get paid for that? We have to say no. Today we can only sell about 15 or 20% of our total production as FSC certified, and where we get a small premium, which is even getting smaller. So people might ask, why do we need to be FSC certified if there's no advantage on the sales side? Another challenge is fire. I mean, the El Nino effect in Southern America, in Northern America, in Europe, and also very much now coming also in Africa, means that we have less rains and we have a higher fire risk. And we have had also forest fires in our concession already. So this is a risk on the long run, which is not really depending on us as a company, but which we have to deal with. I just take another point, wildlife management. We have gorillas, we have elephants, but we have also people from outside, even outside Africa, who wants ivory, who wants or who buy even parrots. We have just had a case where our rangers, they have spotted poachers who took parrots. And those parrots are being sold to Europe, and you can buy a parrot here for $800 or $1,000 in Europe. But they are being poached, for example, in areas where we come from. And another challenge we face is also human resources. Out of our about 1,000 employees in Africa, we have, how do you say, electricity rate? People cannot, they cannot read and write. 80% of our employees definitely cannot read and write, for example. But still, we need mechanics, we need IT specialists, we need people work in the accountancy, machine operators, and so on. So this is a difficulty in the Congo area to get professional employees, and what we do is do lots of formation on the spot there, but as a company it's sometimes difficult to handle that. I mean, just a short overview. I mean, maybe you can say what sort of jobs we have.
Yes, so typical positions which are Africa-based at IFO, our forest management side, are of course anything starting from forest management protection, from the teams that carry out the forest inventory, to the teams that carry out reduced impact harvesting practices. Then we have, of course, the teams that take care of transporting the logs that have been harvested to the production site where everything is being processed. We have sawmill and finger joints sawmills. We have mechanical services, very important, as well as garage services. These are a little bit of the hidden kind of posts that nobody thinks of, but they are key in making available, you know, heavy equipment, which is also very important, so that people can work without having, you know, with having peace of mind. Then, of course, we have export and logistics, quality sorting, the warehouse. Warehouse is also very important because we cannot just invest in any spare parts. We have to decide what is necessary to carry out our operations daily without having to spend fortunes. So that's also very strategic. Then at LCC, where we have our logistics company in Cameroon, of course we have logistics people and administrative, finance and statistics personnel. And here in Switzerland and Europe, so Switzerland and Belgium, where we're based, again, we have finance and statistics, but we also have sales and procurement for all the trading that we do. So basically, IFO is our first and foremost customer, only to us. So they sell everything they do to us, but we also trade and we procure wood from other sources, as Mr. Grauert was saying before. Then we have, of course, sustainability and social responsibility, communication and marketing, recruitment and back office support.
Yeah, I hope it works. We just want to show you a little movie. You can hear, this has just been well, you just come back from Africa.
Yes, I've just come back from Africa, where I met a researcher, which is unlike any other researcher you may imagine. He's a bit of an Indiana Jones of tropical forest. So he's actually now 57, but I think he was kept young by his passion for gorillas. So it's maybe paradoxical to some of you and counterintuitive, but actually by buying sustainable hardwood, you protect the forest and you save gorillas. We have a very high concentration of gorillas, as was resulting from 2 surveys carried out in 2007-2014 by WCS, a very well-known conservation NGO based in the States. And they found from some traces left by gorilla groups in the forest that we have quite a high density of gorillas. And these are silverback gorillas. They're very unique. And as you can see, they move in groups. So you see the female on the left-hand side with the young gorilla, and then there are males who protect their groups. Sometimes when you travel to IFO by car, you can see gorillas crossing from the neighboring conservation park. We have a national park, which is basically the same forest, just divided by the national road built by the government. And very often you would see gorillas from one side to the other. So this researcher called Max Hudeburg, he had already investigated gorillas in Gabon, and he traveled to Congo to see whether it's possible to have like ecotourism projects there. And this might be one of the interesting things worth investing or attracting funds for. And we very much hope that this will be a reality. But we have to fight against poaching, we have to keep the forest protected and regenerated, we have to take care of the communities. There are so many aspects that have to be catered for. We can't do this without the help of customers, without the help of the general public, without the help of everyone who is justly concerned that what we do right, we do well. That's why for us it's important not just to say what we do, but to engage with a number of people all around us and even very far from us to make sure that we do this right.
Yeah. So, Stefan, I think we like to make a break here. And if you or anybody else has questions, please do so. That was just yeah, a little input and insight from our side.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the two of you. Maybe you could mute your mic. Perfect. Thank you very much. Yeah, first off, like really glad that you volunteered your time to give this really interesting input. And also thank you very much for all the participants that joined us today. And we received a lot of questions. So I would just take back my question and just go with the questions that was posed by the participants. And I believe you also have them on screen, Mr. Grauert. Can you unmute your mic? Can you unmute your mic? Perfect.
So I see one question from Frederick. volumes of extraction per annum, any commitments to help with reforestation in these areas? Shall we start with that, or how do you want to just go through that?
Yeah, it would be perfect if you could just, take the questions that are voted first and maybe read them out and then answer them either.
I'm just wondering, can I share the screen? Then maybe, because I'm just, because if I share the screen again, then maybe we can just allow. Okay. So now you can see the questions here on the screen again. So, well, volumes of extraction per annum, it's about 220,000 cubic meters per year, 200 to 220,000 cubic meters per year. Reforestation as such, we don't do because we do selective logging in a sustainable way. So we harvest less than what is regenerating naturally. So every species, like for example, if we take a mahogany species like sapili, for example, we know exactly how many young trees we have, how many older trees or very old trees we have. And that is how we have made our management plan, which is also being redone. I think every 20 years we redo the management plan to check whether we are still on track. So that is why reforestation is not necessary. However, if you look on a logging road, then of course there's a road in the forest. If you cut off the road and if you stop driving, you will see already after 4 to 5 months that lots of young vegetation is coming up and you can't drive anymore. After 5 to 6 years, trees are already nearly as high as the surrounding trees left and right. And after 10, 15 years, you have more or less the same forest cover and also biomass cover as before. And we have done, just for information, we have invited the board of directors of FSC. They have been there 3 years ago.
End of 2016.
Yeah, they have come to our concession, and we have been driving down a road, and then we stopped with the car, and we went inside the forest some 100 meters only, and we just asked them, where do you think we are here? And they were looking left and right and all around. Yeah, we're in the middle of the forest. And then we showed them the maps and the GPS signs and so on. And we have been standing actually on a forest road, which we have been working, I think, some 3-4 years ago. So just to understand that the impact of roads is also something which is an impact, of course, but which is something which is taken back by nature very, very quickly. So if I just go down here, the next question, 0.53 hectare on 30 hectares is very impressive. Do you think that could work for smaller farms? To be honest, I don't think it's workable. I mean, the point we have with concession politics and strategies in Africa, but all over the world, we do need, I think, concession areas of 200 to 300 hectares and bigger to really do selective logging and have sustain an economic case. I mean, you need a company, you need a certain turnover because you have costs for your employees, for investments and so on. If you do that on a smallholder basis, well, you could do that as a family, of course, but I mean, if you would like to run a small company, you need bigger surfaces to do sustainable logging. What is necessary for leaving conflicts between forestry and conservation behind and unite professionals from these fields?
Well, I think it's very easy in our case because we have this national park just opposite the road from our forest concession. So intuitively, we should work together a lot more because even in their own interest, it's not good if the concession, which is now sustainably managed, is no longer there. What would happen once, the place is abandoned in the worst case scenario? They would be at risk. So we need to unite forces. Maybe it's counterintuitive still to some old school conservationists, but that's the way to go. We need to work together. We are too close to each other. And even when concessions are not close to national parks, they still need to work a lot more together. We have common objectives. We need to keep the forest standing.
Yeah, but I mean, just in the case in our case at IFO, the collaboration between the national park and our industry and the forest there is very close today. So they do training for anti-poaching. We do training for anti-poaching. We do training together. We do training for our police officers, for not our, but for the government police officers. We provide training, and also the poaching people for human rights, for example, that they obey human rights. We do training, and we do know that people in the close by national park do trainings also, and we do trainings even together. If we have our poaching people are tracing poachers, then we inform also the people in the close by national park. Please be aware and have a look from your side also that there's a lot of work together. We're taking figures, we're exchanging information. I think the takeaway, you have lots of national parks in Central Africa where you have not enough anti-poaching personnel. Which means you have a national park, but there's lots of poaching going on. Why do we have more than 4,000 forest elephants? Why do we have 70,000 gorillas? It is because we are inside the forest. We are doing our best safeguarding the forest. We have an anti-poaching team every day on the ground. So, and we do have a case. Not only us, but there are other industries, of course. We do have a case as an industry to say forest management and environmental protection and habitat is possible. And as Julia said, I mean,
we have the same objective, so
yeah.
It's just logical for us to work together.
Yeah. Why do we need internationally coherent forest policy? How can international forest policy enable the private forestry sector to improve their undertakings? Specific focus on INTERHOLCO. I mean,
this has got to do with our license to operate. So when we showed you the slides, the regulatory landscape, economic, environmental and social landscapes, this all goes nicely together. If you go back to our website and you check the working across landscapes pages and sub-pages, you see this has to do with our approach to sustainability. It's detailed there.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I just see another question popping up on the same side here. What do you do to protect animals living in the harvesting areas? We are surveying on a constant basis the forest for people who try to invade the forest and to get away poachers. I mean, poachers come even from Chad, from outside the country. They come and into other countries just for poaching. So, I mean, what do we do is really be on the spot and try our best to protect.
Also, we are in the north of the Republic of Congo, which has at a crossroad amongst a number of other countries, some of which have been unstable and just recently conflict-free. But being conflict-free doesn't mean that, that there are not migrations of peoples or even armies or even armed forces. So this adds to the complexity of this particular question.
I'd like to add something on this question: how can international forest policy enable private forestry sector to improve? I mean, we are in contact, of course, very regular with the European Union. We are in contact with the AFD, which is the French development arm of the government. We're the same on the German side. There's FAO, there's United Nations, and there is critical NGOs, even Greenpeace. There is the WCS, World Wildlife Conservation Society. There's Global Witness. So I think being in contact with these people and having them on the ground, inviting them to see and have a look and even consider and propose improvements, and we are happy to
and one other thing maybe on this particular aspect, if you go to our website, to the media page, you'll find that in Focus we have an important piece of news for us because we contributed with a public position paper to the EU. That was like a consultation, a public consultation by the European Union to implement measures against deforestation and forest degradation. So we made our own recommendations. We think that the game of the European Union needs to be elevated to include and think about financial support and sanctions. So in a lot more political way and a lot more strategic way. If you're curious, just please go back to our website and check the media page in Focus, and you'll find this particular piece of news with the position paper that we published. It's 4 pages. We can't really summarize it here, but please take a look.
Another question, could your company reduce investment costs and secure provision of wood products into the EU? I think definitely yes. I mean, if you have certified companies like we are, then the investment to secure that timber is legal. I mean, is close to zero. I mean, so if I understand the question correctly, the answer is certification in high-risk areas is helping definitely to reduce investment costs and to secure the provision of legal products into the EU or elsewhere. What is the benefit of, next question, of third-party suppliers to trade with or through INTERHOLCO, especially the benefit, well, there is a commercial benefit that we have a rather large worldwide setup. We are selling to 50 countries, so we are following markets. We try to get good prices. We have close relationships to our customers. So, many suppliers of ours are specialized in forest management and transformation, but they have no marketing, for example. So that's why maybe where they find the interest to work together with us. Another interest is that we also support our suppliers. We partly finance suppliers to improve industry and to develop further projects inside the company. But also we help suppliers to get certified and improve their internal system and all that procedures. I mean, we just have been working with a supplier of ours in DRC, which is, everybody says it's a very high-risk country, which is true, but this supplier has just reached last month's legality certification. And why? Because we have been working very closely together, being on the ground. We have been helping to write procedures, to train people, and so on. And of course, the company has done all the efforts themselves locally, but this is, I think, sort of a beneficial working together. And then also we, of course, can buy the legality verified timber, which then we can serve to markets which are interested in that. Another question is, I know IROCO is a near threatened and Sapelli is listed in Appendix 2 of CITES to not necessarily threatened with extinction. I want to know how their harvesting is regulated to prevent them from extinction in the future. IROCO, just in our case, we have very little, nearly nothing in all the Republic of Congo. IROCO is more in West Africa, in Liberia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, a little bit in Cameroon, a little bit in Gabon, but much less. On Sapelli, that is a rather major species we have in our forest. And we are discussing a lot about Sapelli internally, because Sapelli in the forest, in our concession, we have we have naturally little young trees. We have a lot of older trees and very old trees. So we could say that even without harvesting at all, in about 200 to 300 years, sapelli will be declining and might not be a relevant species anymore into 200 to 300 years from now, even though you don't do harvesting. I mean, there is a natural cycle which is rather important also in Africa. Another example, just to say, is Gabon is a species called Okume. Okume is 80%, making 80% of the whole forest inventory in Gabon, which is incredible. 200 years ago, there was nearly no Okume at all in Gabon. And what happened is that there was lots of animal movement. There was some forest fire, there was some natural development. This is way before any industrial use, I mean, 200 years ago. So there was a complete transformation of the forest in Gabon, and that's why we have today 80%. The exact reasons I can't explain you exactly, but just to, I think one part of the answer is that we need to do management plans and look at cycles and the living cycles of species, and then do the logging. So don't do too much logging, or you could do a little bit more logging. That is one side. On the other side, there is a traditional cycle which even with logging or without logging, you can't change that.
I think there is a question that you inadvertently skipped. If you can just go upwards. Yes.
No, I spoke about that one.
No, there was one on the country. I saw one.
But we go up again later on. I would propose that after harvesting indigenous trees, are there any efforts to grow others and ensure they are taken care of? I mean, indigenous trees, I don't know what is meant exactly. For us, there are no indigenous trees. I mean, all trees or species are indigenous. I mean, there are natural there even without us being there, and they are taken care of. For example, we have one species called Afromosia, which is commercially very interesting and well known worldwide. But we have very little Afromosia in the whole concession. So we decided not to cut at all Afromosia, because this is well, you might say indigenous tree, indigenous species, which we just don't harvest because it's not enough to be regenerated afterwards. What about leakages to surrounding protected area due to anti-poaching measures and undertaken inside the concession area? I think we spoke about that. Yes. I would say. How did you learn to love forest? Well, myself, I'm born in Ivory Coast, in Abidjan. My father was a forester, and well, but when I was 5 years old, the family went back to Germany. But all my life I was in timber, so maybe it comes from there. Yeah.
Well, for me as well. I mean, I think that even somebody coming from a country with the vast majority of its surface being a desert would love forest, if just by, out of curiosity or of longing even, because those are really very magical places. I would say whenever you are in a natural forest, you feel this force of nature. And for me personally, to have been able to visit the forest of Central Africa in Congo each time I go, I'm aware that this is an immense privilege. You find out it's very hard to walk in a natural forest. There are no red carpets. You hear a lot of noise from the surrounding animals, but you realize that is really an entity. It's something living. It's a living body. So that's.
And also, as we feel tropical timber, and the timber we are responsible for is not belonging to us as a company, not to anybody. It's a public good which legally belongs to the government or to the local people living there, and we just have to be responsible for this public good. Another question, could you please give... Yes?
One second. Since there are a lot of questions coming in, I would just hand it to you to decide whether you want to go through all of them or whether you want to prioritize the rest of them. Since we promised like 1 hour of webinar,
yes,
I would just give that decision to the two of you, since you're volunteering your time.
We don't want to put off any question. We are here. We have the time too. So we just go through the questions. So we just another question was: could you please give information about how forest inventories are carried out in the areas that are the sources for the traded wood? It is the same way. I mean, one thing which is interesting to know that there's very good forestry law all over West Africa and Central Africa. The forestry law is there, and the forestry law provides regulations how to carry out inventories. Then, of course, it's a question of application. But the suppliers and producers we buy of, they do it more or less the same way. You go through the forest physically in a row of people, like every 20 or 30 meters you have one person. You see a tree, you take note, you take the diameter, you take the quality, and then you continue working the forest. And afterwards, this information is being made available with a GPS signal, and then introduced into electronic digital maps on our PCs. So, and others do it maybe more manually, or do it as we do with digital information and so on, but it's more or less the same way, if they do it properly. Storytelling, do you have challenges of educating the general public and individuals?
I can take this one.
Please.
Concerns me directly. Yes, I would say it's a huge challenge, not just because tropical hardwood has got such a tainted kind of image, but also because there are a number of prejudices, whether good or bad, in good or bad faith. And we saw this at the beginning when we started screening through the questions. The very question on reforestation, this is a forest myth that when you do forest harvesting, the forest is gone. Actually, the opposite is true. So reforestation is a concept that should only appear in connection with the notion of forest loss. There is no forest loss with forest harvesting, and even less whenever you have a certified forest operator, as we are. Okay, so it is a constant challenge because there are so many ingrained ideas in our minds, and that's why we love taking part in this kind of exercises. Thank you for having us today, because it gives us a chance also of taking the temperature, so to speak. And you're very young people, but most of you are anyway, so it's a good opportunity for us to spread some other ideas.
One of the challenges, I think, if you go back into the presentation, we had 2 or 3 slides really talking about challenges for us. Then sawmill close to the river and DRC, any environmental standards to ensure the river is not polluted. First of all, DRC, we are the Republic of Congo. I mean, we really like to stress this point because people think if we talk about Congo Republic, we are DRC. No, we are RC, Republic of Congo Brazzaville. To your question, yes, there are standards, not only for this big river, which is called the River Sanga, which is close to the sawmill. Of course, there's every drinking water, every water which is coming out of toilets or even the hospital and so on, is not going back into the river as such. It is like here in Europe, we have, how do you say in English?
A water treatment facility.
To make it clean and to treat also polluted water from people living there. And the same also, we have lots of water inside the concession, of course. I mean, there's no pollution because there are no people living there. But if you open a road or if you build a small bridge, then you might risk that small rivers are polluted by erosion or some soil going to the river. And this is very, very carefully taken care about, because we are aware of that and we have measures to that this will not happen. And this is also verified by even FSC auditors. They especially look at pollution issues. Is the international voluntary carbon market interesting for INTERHOLCO? No. I mean, we have been doing studies ever since. We have been asked to participate. The answer is a clear no. If that changes, I mean, tomorrow, why not? But we are not participating in this. And also we are, as a concept, to set aside the forest and just pay a person living in the forest. We also think it's not a good concept. It is better to use the world in general and the resources we have in a responsible, sustainable way to create jobs, so that people can earn their money, can invest into their private livelihoods, and really get a reward for that, what they have done. But this maybe is also a question for us as a company, but the answer is no. Any thoughts on the global decolonizing movement, if and how it affects INTERHOLCO's position? That's about migration, you mean, or what?
No, decolonizing movement. Maybe we are seen as, bringing forward a colonial kind of style operation, industrial operation. I would say the opposite is true.
Yeah.
We have expectations on the side of the state. So the state sees the benefit of our presence in the north of the country, which is an area which is far from Brazzaville or Pointe Noire, where the heart of the economic activities which are related to oil reside. So it's a win-win, basically. We are able to harvest wood and make our economic gain, but we also give back to the communities. And this is regulated by the law. It's not just out of the goodness of our hearts, but it's because it's a contract with the state. So the state expects several kind of benefits in return for our presence there.
And I would add, not only with the government, but especially with local population themselves. I mean, there are indigenous people living inside the concession. There are villagers living inside the concession. We are in regular contact with them. And if you, and Tulia just comes back from our concession, if you talk to the people will let you know, will tell you, hopefully the company will not go away, because we have jobs and we do lots of positive aspects in the area.
Even projects, for instance, there are very successful projects with some of the indigenous communities as opposed to projects with some of the local communities. And there is a nuance, because the indigenous peoples have a traditional, let's say, dynamic relationship with the Bantus, which are the main ethnic group in the Republic of Congo. Politically sanctioned, but our presence there makes it possible for indigenous communities to gain an independence from the usual, let's say, vicious circle of being exploited by the Bantu groups. Something which the government maybe deliberately avoids looking into. So by our presence, there are a number of benefits, not just for the forest alone or wildlife, but especially the communities there, and of course the global community at large, because the forest is kept thriving and expanding.
Yeah, I mean, we do have problems, and it's not all green and easy and so on. What we can only let you know, come and see. I think that's the most important message. I think we can let you know. The country is safe. You can travel. You have hotels. You have good food and meat and a good meal and everything. It's a normal. Well, come and see and go into the forest, talk to the local people, and have a look yourself. And I think especially if information is flowing around. I mean, we have, of course, our message to tell, that's clear. But we have testimony, we have documentation. We don't tell you a story without background. And if you have interest, just come and see.
Perfect. Thank you very much, you two. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer all the questions. So I would just have a famous last question. What piece of advice would you give to young people working in forestry?
Well, first of all, start working in forestry, and this means really come on the ground. And of course, you do studies and that's on, but then find a good company and just really start working. Make your own experience. Sometimes we have lots of people entering the company, and they start maybe in logistics, and then they find out about sales, and they continue their life in sales. Maybe people start in the industry, and then they find about forestry, and they go into the forestry, or vice versa. And another point I would say is be critical, ask questions, ask information, and just don't believe everything which you just hear or read, but double check.
Yes, I would just add, make up your mind. This is very much in line with this. Don't be afraid of making up your mind, of having your own opinion. Don't just subscribe to anyone else's because it's trendy, because it's popular or unpopular. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, so long as it's your own opinion and you stay open to also challenging any ideas that you may have, and also come back with good advice to us, because I think this is what we want to do. We want to become better at what we do on a continuous basis.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think this is a really good note to end on. Really appreciated the input and the fact that all of the people stayed with us throughout the whole 1 hour 15 speaks for itself. Yeah, thank you so much for kicking off the first of 4 sessions leading up to UN Procurement. And I just want to invite all the participants to our next session, which is going to happen in 2 days, 18 at 10 a.m. Berlin time, and we're going to have Emma Hatcher, the Director of International Policy from the Department of Agriculture and Water Resources Australia, talking to us about the member states' perspective on international forest policy. So join us in 2 days, and yeah, we're looking forward to continue the discussions. Feel free to join in, and again, thank you very much to INTERHOLCO and the 2 of you for joining us today. Thank you very much.
And happy Easter to everybody.
A very good note to end on. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.